So new subclasses have been released for D&D 5e along with a bunch of other spells and feats, and they're all about psionics. So before we begin the review, I have to clarify, what do psionics mean, and specifically what do psionics mean in D&D 5e, because psionics are very broadly defined and ill-defined in my opinion, so I gotta explain. I also need to explain to myself as well, because I have trouble understanding psionics. The way D&D, the way Wizards of the Coast is using psionics, I don't get it. It doesn't mesh with my opinion of what psionics is, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the psionics, the Unearthed Arcana's psionics things. So anyways, psionics in D&D are based from the mind, powers from the mind, and they allow you to affect your body, your mind, other people's minds, and the world around them. Again, that's very broad, but this article does give a little bit of help in this regard. It gives, it lists certain things in the psionic spells page. It lists a list of things. It's got things like telepathy, mind control, telekinesis, and teleportation, and altering the perception of others. So this is like, you're reaching into their mind and changing it so, no, there is no false Hydra there. What are you talking about? Also, you don't have a wife. So references to really interesting creatures aside, let's talk about the Psychic Warrior. Now, before I begin, I gotta clarify a few things about how I'm gonna do this review. First thing is that, like, I divide them into thematic review and mechanical review. I'll review one subclass's themes of their abilities, like the different justifications for why this ability is something that a Psychic Warrior can do. And I'd also say, like, no, this is not something a Psychic Warrior could do based on what we know about what makes a Psychic Warrior. And then I go over and I talk about the mechanics, the dice, and the math, and all those things. So I will be going over the subclass twice, and if I miss stuff, I probably am getting it in the second part. And one more thing, I promise I will get to the actual video, but I just gotta say, I'll be throwing up here, there's gonna, the feature or the spell or whatever I'm reviewing, but it's better if you've read the entire article before, so go ahead, check the link down in the description to the official Unearthed Arcana release. But with that all out of the way, that is a lot to talk about. But anyways, let's talk about the Psychic Warrior. So the first thing you get is Psionic Armament. This comes in two parts. The first one is defense, and for this one I think it needs a more flavor text to tell you what exactly is happening. Maybe it's you're making your body be more resistant to damage, or you're like using telekinesis to hold the weapon as it comes, slowing its attack, and thus lessening the damage that it does to you. Maybe it's that. So clarification would be nice here. Another thing that we have in this feature is augmented strikes. So this is you zapping people with psychic damage when you make a weapon attack. I see it as like you're increasing the pain they feel from the weapon itself. That's the way at least my mind justifies, so that not you're surrounding your blade in psychic energy, which again in my mind isn't a thing that appears outside of the mind. But anyways, that's irrelevant. Now the second feature you get at level 3 is Telekinetic Hand. This is Mage Hand, but it's invisible. You're going to see this a lot throughout the article. I do have some thoughts about this, but they're more on the mechanical side of things, so I'm going to say that for when that comes up again. So Strength of Mind allows you to push your enemies around the battlefield. You're doing force damage, which makes sense. You're pushing them. It's not bludgeoning. It's more of a metaphysical push, so it's a force damage, which is metaphysical bludgeoning damage, basically. So Telekinetic Bulwark is one interesting thing. You get to I think it's like you're pushing around your allies, moving them into slightly better positions, so they're more covered, more protected, more able to defend against these things. You're also like pushing around the weapons so that they are less likely to hit your allies. So I think it makes sense that way, but it takes a bit to wrap your head around it in terms of themes. So augmentation is this like feeling, is you're again increasing the pain they feel, only the pain is more of the primary attack. And so when they go prone and are disadvantaged on skill checks, that's because they're so racked with pain that they can't stand up and they can't use the skills and abilities that they have learned because, well, at least they have a harder time doing it because their mind is elsewhere. It's not, okay, let's quickly scan the Library of Arcana. It's more of, ah! Alright, the last one is Psychic Dreadnought, and this is, you're augmenting yourself, you're like stitching your wounds together, you're making yourself move around the battlefield faster and jump up faster. That's what it kind of is. Now, going back to the mechanical side of things, Psionic Armaments, they are very similar to two features of main classes, that's the Monk's Deflect Missiles feature, and the Barbarian's Reckless Attack. Monk's Deflect Missiles is more powerful, but also more specific than the Fighter's thing. The Monk's is 1d10 plus their level plus their Dexterity modifier, whereas the Fighter's is just their d10. But Monks get that as only against ranged weapons, whereas Fighters can get it against all kinds of weapons. So there's a trade-off of versatility versus power, which I like. But with Augmented Strikes, comparing that to Barbarian's rage damage, it's not so good. It looks to be a trade-off, like Barbarians get +2 and higher as they go, but +2 damage to every attack they make with the strength weapon, whereas the Fighters, they get a d4 to 1 attack per turn. It seems like a trade-off, you know, more power but more consistent, but it's actually not, because the Fighter's ability is a 1d4, which the average damage of that is 2.5, so once you reach 5th level, get your extra attacks, Barbarian's pumping out 4 damage guaranteed, whereas you are still going to pump out just 2.5 on average. So you have a 1 in 4 chance, and later a 1 in 6 chance of doing as much damage on your round as much extra damage in your round as a Barbarian. So I think this should be bumped up to a d6, so 3.5, you're getting more damage naturally, but it's once per round. And actually, no, I'd probably keep the d4, but until level 5, you get an improvement. It's now a d6. But anyways, you'd be sort of scaling up your damage to compare to the Barbarian, which maybe that would work. What I'm proposing, like a d8 at, I don't know, 15th level maybe, or something like that, or maybe just 10th level. But anyways, that's the idea, I guess. The progress so that it's a trade-off with the Barbarian's rage feature. They get consistent damage, but you get more bursty damage. Right, and with Telekinetic Hand, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about Mage Hand, but Invisible right now. It's going to come up later in the video, but I'm just going to reference it back over to here. So I feel they should just put it out there, say, alright, you have Telekinesis. Within this range, you can move objects of this size, or this poundage, and you can move them this amount per round. Yeah, that does sound like a lot, but I feel it's better to do this as opposed to, you know, this spell. You gotta look it up and figure out what it is, but it's invisible, so you have to remember that. But maybe on the other hand, another perspective is, like, people will have an easier time understanding something they already know, but modified, as opposed to a new ability entirely. So there's different reasonings for each side. I don't think I'm necessarily right on how I feel this should be implemented, but yeah, that's my thoughts on Mage Hand, but it's invisible, and that being Telekinesis. For Strength of Mind, Nerd Immersion in their review, which I thought was pretty cool, Nerd Immersion said that most fighter features are short or long rest recharge. This is just a long rest recharge, and he said, and I agree with him, that it's not good enough to be a long rest recharge. It's not that powerful enough. Yes, it is a bonus action attack, increasing the number of attacks you do, but in terms of bonus action attack, it's a great sword's damage at longer range, and it pushes people around. It's in the middle. Like, bonus action great sword at range is not, it's not something you want to be able to spam, but also it's too weak to be a long rest. I'd say just have it as one of the attack options. Like, this is an attack you can do. Like Sun Soul, they can do their Repulsor Ray punch as an attack option, and they can also do the regular punch, or with this thing, unarmed strike, whatever. So that's my idea how to make it better, and it'd be a short rest thing. Now, Telekinetic Bulwark, I understand the concept, but I think there'll also be problems with implementing it in gameplay. The first 1 or 2 times, I don't doubt the intelligence of D&D players. They are nerds, or at least a lot of them are, and that's okay if you're not a nerd. But anyways, Telekinetic Bulwark is half cover and advantage on strength saving throws. Half cover is +2 to AC and dexterity saving throws. So you get +2 to one saving throw, but advantage on another. I think that's going to be confusing for people the first time around. And also, if you're unfamiliar with half cover, you have to look it up or find it on your DM screen. So I think it should be more simplified. I like the idea of giving you the buffs for dexterity and strength, but I think it should be more of a, you get +2 to all three of these things, or you have +2 to AC and advantage on these two things. Either way, I think could work. Advantage is slightly more powerful, but that's what I think about it. Also, one more thing to mention, people are getting confused about this. It's got a weird recharge, and not that I'm against complexity, but it needs some explaining. So it recharges after you use your second wind feature, which is a once use and recharges after you finish a short rest. So between long rest and short rest, you know, at the start of your day, you can use the telekinetic bulwark, and then you use second wind, and then you use telekinetic bulwark again, and then you have a short rest. That's how the timeline would work. Sometimes you might not be able to use, like, you need second wind before you used your first telekinetic bulwark. In that case, you're missing out on a thing, but it pushes you to use telekinetic bulwark early on. It pushes you to use it and which helps your allies. So I think this is a really good mechanic if we understand it properly. So with Agonizing Strikes, one thing to note, it's very good if you are a grappler type character, or at least you have a free hand open. So if you land the attack and they fail their save, they're prone, they have disadvantage on ability checks. Grapple them, they have a disadvantage on the athletics check or athletics or acrobatics check to resist it, and then they are grappled, which means they're at 0 speed, and so they can't get up because that requires movement, which they have none. So that's a way to pin them down, and you keep using it, keep giving them the disadvantage on the ability check to break out. So that's one way to keep them on the ground, keep them locked down, so you have advantage on the attacks against them. With prone, you are going to have advantage on attacks against them. This is, I guess, a way of making it easier to get that. But in terms of not using the grapple thing, just knocking them around and then, you know, using the advantage that it's giving you, I don't think it's that. Again, this is also a long rest ability. I don't think it's her. It's a tough call. I think it's again on the line between a short rest ability and a long rest ability. Maybe go up a little bit in damage, and that'll get you to a long rest ability. But I don't know. I love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And now we're not done. We have Psychic Dreadnought, and this one is just a minor bonus. It's like really plus 5 feet of movement. Standing up with 5 feet of movement. These things aren't going to be used that often, but what is going to be used very often is regaining 10 hit points every round. Now we have seen something similar to this, Champion's Survivor feature, which is 5 plus your Constitution modifier, so basically 10 hit points every round that you are under half your hit point maximum. This gives you automatically 10, but it can get you up to your full hit points. It's only for a minute, so there's that. I'm not sure in terms of math. I haven't done the math yet because there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of subclasses and things that I would also want to do the math on. I have finals coming up, so that's where most of my study time's going. But anyways, maybe it's a good trade-off. Plus 10 hit points every round going up until your maximum for 1 minute, or plus 10 going up to half your hit points at nothing required. But I think that'll about do it for the Psychic Warrior. I'll just say it's one thing I like about the subclass is the ability to make like special attacks. Fighters often have the problem of they just attack again and they keep on attacking and it gets boring. So I like the fact that there's a special bonus action attack that might be just a special attack, and then another special attack later. So those two things I loved in Rune Knight. I also love here as well. Give the fighter something they can do with all of their attacks. Now let's talk about the Soulknife, and the first thing that they get is their Psychic Blade, their Soulknife, which doesn't make sense because they have 2 of them. But anyways, the Psychic Blade is, you can summon the blades. They don't tell you how the blades look, I think because of the like cultural image of a soul blade or something similar. They're going to be purple glowing blades. You throw them, and then they disappear, so they don't leave any visible marks. It's psychic damage, and I think it's been clarified that means sneak attack damage is also psychic damage, so even better. This person is going to be really good against a lot of enemies that have resistance to the, physical damage types. And some people were saying, like maybe this should be more like a Pact of the Blade, where you can sheath the knives around weapons that you have, but I think that cuts against the idea of the blade. The blade is supposed to not leave any weapons, so even if it's mechanically better if you have the plus one weapon or plus 2 dagger you found somewhere. The Soulknife it's supposed to be a thing that leaves no trace, and that you can summon whenever you wish. Now, moving on to the next feature, Psionic Enhancement. So these benefits are just similar to Psychic Dreadnought, making yourself tougher, moving yourself around quicker, things like that. Now, Terrifying Mind is an ability I can see, I think, is like you're attacking their mind. It's a mind blade, and so of course, when you do attacks, like you do special attacks, they're not going to be like, you're not going to trip them, or you're not going to riposte them. You're going to frighten them because you're attacking their mind, and so that's a really, really cool idea. The next one is Psychic Veil, and this is where you're reaching into the minds of everybody and removing yourself from their perception. You are blocking the image of you from entering their mind. That's some pretty cool False Hydra stuff, and this is one of the things I really agree that this is a psionic ability. You're reaching into people's minds and affecting those minds in some way. So I love this ability. And then Rend Mind is an even more powerful mind attack, and I might be able to stack with the Terrifying Blade. I'm not sure, but there's just one thing, just a small detail I would ask to be changed in terms of themes. It should say you throw the blade because it's right now it says target one creature within range, and then once you're done, one of your blades disappears. So I think it's better just have it be you throw the blade and it disappears, as you would do with normal throwing attack. Now, going to the mechanical side of things, Psychic Blade, I think it's actually a little bit underpowered. You can summon D6 weapons they're light and finesse, so you can use both of them and use sneak attack. But this is your main fighting ability. Like, you do get a defensive buff, a potential defensive buff, which is second, third level ability, but like, you should be able to get something better than that. Just they disappear. Like, it's cool, but not that great. Like, some things like Assassin and Swashbuckler and Inquisitive, the more battlefield kind of things, which or at least more combat focused rogues, that seems to be, they get a special way to use their sneak attack, and this seems to be a combat focused subclass. That's what most of their attack abilities are about. So I'd say, like, maybe if you hit with your first Psychic Blade, you've disrupted their mind long enough to get a second attack with sneak attack on it. So if you hit twice, you get sneak attack, basically. Now going back to Psionic Enhancement, it has telepathy, and it just says telepathy 30 feet. It trusts you know well enough to understand what telepathy is, which I really like. And it also has I do have a problem with the like giving you more hit points. It makes sense. If you're going to be more on the front line, you're going to have this. So if you're being more of a frontline rogue, then I guess this is something useful. But that kind of takes away from the fact that this is also supposed to be like an untouchable and like a ghost assassin or something like that. And also I think the rogue is supposed to be a glass cannon, so giving it more hit points like this is potentially messing with that. I don't know. Now, with Terrifying Blade, there's an important thing to note. Its frightened condition ends at the start of your turn, your next turn. So what happens is, frightened, it doesn't have much combat application. It's like disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while you're in the line of sight. So it's a good debuff for them. They have a hard time doing their thing in combat. But on your turn, it doesn't give you that many benefits unless you're trying to grapple them, in which case, yes, it does benefit you to have disadvantage on ability checks. But I don't know. It does make sense, but also I'd probably be okay if it goes, end of your next turn or start of your next turn in the final version of this. I'd be fine with either one, because I really can't make my mind on this. But something I can make up my mind, Psychic Veil. It's invisibility. I think you're like ninth level. No, not ninth level. You're high level enough that I don't think it much matters. You have invisibility for about an hour, which you can split up, and it's not like concentration. But if you're investing this many levels in Rogue to get, and you're going to 20th level, and you're investing this much just to get invisibility without concentration, I don't see that's like a problem for multi-classing, balancing, so for like having concentration on another spell, so an invisible wizard kind of thing. But I feel it's a good ability that you should be able to have. And then the last one, Rend Mind. One thing to note, it's a save, not an attack. So this is not a sneak attack ability. You might be able to say that this is an attack, so you can use your bonus action for another Psychic Blade attack, but this is, again, a Psychic Blade, but a more powerful, a different type of attack. It's 12d6, which is something only Inquisitive at this point is able to get in terms of sneak attack. So it's not a bad thing that you're not getting sneak attack. Another thing is stun also lasts until the start of your next turn, so you're not going to be able to benefit from that stun, which I think was... I'd see that as the main reason. You're stunning them for your next round. You get your sneak attack. You have advantage, and so you have advantage, you get your sneak attack, all that good stuff. So the only reason this would be used is as a debuff. Again, messing with their action economy, shutting them down, and giving your allies a chance to help them. So that's maybe what the idea is here. However, I think if half of your capstone subclass ability you don't get to use, use, then I think there's a problem with it. So I'd say this one, definitely put this until the end of your turn. You can get a sneak attack. If not, they can, your friends have gotten something on it, or at the very least, if they failed the saving throw, they've lost their turn, which is good for you, so you can do even more damage. With this subclass, I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I gotta say, I love this. This is a very, thematically tight. Everything works together, at least with a little bit of tweaks, everything works together as being this very assassin, attacking the mind kind of thing, which has uses as both a battlefield support / glass cannon and as a silent assassin. Again, there are just a few tweaks I'd like, but overall, love this subclass. I still want to see this. Now going to Psionic Tradition, and I really think they should have come up with a better name for it. Maybe the School of Mind Powers or something. That's silly. But something better than Psionics Tradition. Anyways, on to this actual stuff. The first thing they get is Psychic Focus, which is a better spellcasting focus. The question I have is why do you need a Psychic focus as opposed to just regular spellcasting focus? Yes, you're a special type of spellcaster. It's a bit weird, this Psychic focus idea. I can't figure out any reason why a Scion would have this, other than standard spellcasting focus, but since it's a spellcaster, then why wouldn't you just call your spellcasting focus your Psychic focus, or something like that. Anyways, that I do have questions about, but the other one, Psionic Spells that you get, I love that you have your at-will features that fit into what your kind of specialty of Scion is. Are you, or Psionist, but specialty of Scion. Are you a mind control? Are you a telepathy? Are you a telekinesis? Whichever one, you can get the other ones, but these have benefits. These have cool benefits. And so you get to, pick what thing you're focusing on, and at later levels, we'll talk about... Actually, let's talk about it right now. Mental Discipline gives you mind control, clairvoyance, and as opposed to telepathy, but this is, I guess, better, you're just observing, and then you have telekinesis. These are more powerful versions of the things that, more powerful, I guess, progression from the cantrip, the Psionic Devotion, to Mental Discipline, which is more powerful of the kind of specific type of Psionist you're trying to be. So I like the synergy. I like the connections between the two. Now going back one moment for thought form, this is kind of the Psionist's main shtick. It's turning into this ball of purple energy, or whatever you want it to be, but you turn into a psionic form as a being of energy. You have ascended into a higher plane. You are better at casting spells. This is where you can pretend you're a Psionist. You don't have to wave your hands to do silly things. You can just say, die now, or something. And you also, again, since you are being of energy now, it's harder to hit you, harder to damage you, I should say, with certain things. Now, going all the way up to Empowered Psionics, I'll talk more about this in the mechanical side of things, but this also synergizes with your psychic focus. And then thought travel, this is building on your thought travel feature. So there's a lot of great stuff here. Anyways, you become more incorporeal than physical. So first you're just harder to damage with non-magical weapons. Now you can actually move through, stuff that is not magic power. I do have some problems with the subclass, but I love the design. It's building off itself, and I love it. Now going on to the mechanical side of things, Psionic Focus, it makes you better at casting psionic spells, making the damage increase better. And I guess this is like taking the place of the half golden time costs for your spells, because you're don't have a specific school. Maybe you do later. But anyways, that's what Psionic Focus is. Psychic Devote. Actually, let's go over to Empowered Psionics, because that fits in. There's a blog post on the site Tribality, and I'll link to it down in the description. If it's not there, yell at me down in the comments to fix this. But anyways, it was saying that this works with Psychic Focus, which is rerolling ones, I think, on your damage roll, and this one is adding your intelligence modifier to damage. So this is basically increasing your damage output with psionic spells, which are not as powerful as things like Fireball, or Cone of Cold, or Chain Lightning, or all these big, flashy spells. You can do Mind Spike and still do a decent amount of damage. Still be able to feel like you're contributing as somebody who's dealing damage. So that's what the idea behind it is. You're very, very powerful. You can squeeze out every last bit out of those dice as you can. Now going to a Psychic Devotion, we have basically Friends becomes Charm Person, only it's not Charm specifically, it's just advantage on charisma checks, which is most of what Charm is. So anyways, Friends becomes a Charm Person at will. Mage Hand becomes Telekinesis. Again, I talked about this when I talked about the Fighter, but basically I feel it should be better. But Mage Hand becomes Telekinesis, and then Message becomes Telepathy. And also something to note, you might miss it, but I missed it my first time around, but they actually don't require material components at all now. They make sense because you're mind power, you're not wave hands power, you're not wand power. So this works well. And actually this happens later with mental discipline. They don't get material components on those unless it's a gold cost. But anyways, these ones, it's harder to counterspell. But I'd say, yes, you would be able to counterspell it unless you're ruling like Psionics as something else entirely. But counterspelling this, you don't know what level it is, or at least your enemies don't know. So they don't know whether to put like a 4th level or a 5th level spell slot into this to get it automatically. So that's one benefit of it. Also, it looks cool, or it doesn't look, and that's cool. So with the mental discipline thing, it also has an extra spell slot, and again, Nerd Immersion, love you, man. Nerd Immersion pointed out that this gives you an extra spell slot that you don't have to prepare it for, so it can just be like a thing in your back pocket for maybe you'll need it, maybe you'll not, but if you know you will need it, then you want it, and you're going to probably need it multiple times, or you want to use it multiple times, then you prepare it, but if not, great use of the wizarding spellbook feature, which I really think gets underused. But anyways, let's go on to Thought Form. So this one is a good set of resistances, making your wizard a bit beefier, and again, not using components here. So regardless of whatever it is before, Thought Form, which is it's more clear that something's up, but here you can be a true psionist. But I think you might just be able to say, alright, I'm activating my psionic form, I'm just going to be myself, maybe my eyes are glowing with psionic energy or something, but you get to choose whatever your form is. So you could be a ball of energy, you could be like a bird or something, or you could be a deep, tall, shadowy figure or something like that. But I like the customizability. It also gives you the ability to do the proper psionic thing and not have to wave your hands around to do magic. Thought travel, again, not much to say here, aside from the fact that you could, I imagine some people are going to use this ability as, how do you want to play a ghost in D&D 5e? Well, you use this thing, you use your psionic form, cast Dominate Person, and boom, now you are a ghost, you can go through walls, and you have possessed a person. So, that is something that probably is going to come out of it, but other than that, I think I'm done talking about the Psionics tradition. It's got a lot of options, like I said, and I love the synergy between the features. My problem is, like, it's a good psionic caster. The problem is, at least in my mind, psionics are not magic, but purple energy. So I feel like they should be a separate system entirely, and I feel that way because, and I felt that way so much that I actually went and made a separate system for them. That'll be later at some point in the future on this channel, so please subscribe if you want that. But, like, if we're going the route of, hey, you want to be a psionist? Okay, take the subclass, but pretend you're not a wizard. So that's one thing that, like entirely reskinning the wizard, and this shows up in the psionic spells that you should, I can't put them all up here, but I'm just going to throw up something up there at least. It gives you a list of spells that are psionic, and so conceivably you could just say, you know what? I'm not a wizard, alright? This spell book, this is just recollections and, you know, how to do this stuff as opposed to the things that allow me to do this stuff. This is like, you know, you bring a cookbook with you, but the cookbook is not your ability to whisk things. That's how it seems. So this is one option for how to introduce psionics. I'm fine with it. It's a thing that I think it could work. People gotta have fun with it. But I also have another thing that I think could work. But anyways, we're not going to stop now. Normally I would stop now because we are very far into this video. It is at, 23 minutes, and I paused it, 23 minutes raw, and I paused it a couple times. So I don't know how long this video is going to be. But let's keep going and try to get through all the spells. With these ones, I'm gonna, if I don't have much to say about it in terms of mechanical or thematic things, I'm just going to not talk about it. I will talk about every spell, just not both thematically and mechanically. And you'll notice I'm starting to speak fast. That's because I want to get to the end of this thing, and I'm sure you do too. So some of these spells were actually introduced in original edition D&D and the third supplement, Eldritch Wizardry, and page 10 or 7 or something. Anyways, they were basically just, you have this progression of things. This one is more powerful than this one, this more powerful, and they had this table against which you would roll with your thing against a certain psychic defense, which I thought's pretty cool. Some of those are going to show up. But anyways, let's move on to the actual definition of things. So Ego Whip is 4th level, and it's first because alphabetical order. So Ego in this case is not, you know, Ego the living planet, or Ego the I am the greatest of all kind of thing. It's the Freudian definition from psychology, and I've read an article about this, so obviously I'm an expert on this subject. So this is, the ego is the rational part that's attempting to get, to help achieve your desires. Like if you say, I want to eat ice cream today, and the ego's gonna say, no, you gotta wait. You gotta do something in order to, you can't eat too much ice cream, otherwise you'll be fat, and people don't like that, so don't eat too much, or eat and also exercise. So it's more rational, attempting to achieve your desires without all the negative social consequences. That's its idea. And so it's filling a creature with despair, which I really don't get how it relates with the concept of ego, at least the Freudian definition. I know it's the Freudian definition because later it's going to talk about the id, which is a Freudian invention, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. If you are like an actual expert or actually interested in Freudian psychology, like maybe let me give a more expanded definition of ego, because maybe there's something in there that Ego Whip in its current form means in terms of Freudian psychology. So that's the themes for that. Id insinuation, also Freudian term, is the id. The id is the base desires and with no consequence. So think more like a demon. Like, they want to go kill this person, they're just going to go up and do it. Whereas the ego is, okay, I want to kill this person, I'm going to lure them away and then kill them, you know, where nobody's watching. That's kind of the difference between the id and the ego, which is really weird, actually, because the superego is the one that's very different from the two, but it's connected linguistically to the name ego. But anyways, id insinuation works great. Id insinuation is filling you with conflicting desires. So the id, you are changing, you are, like, increasing the force of their id, but not in a helpful way. So that works great in terms of themes. However, I feel there should be a slight change in terms of the name. Insinuation means something, a hint of something bad, like, hey, you know he was hanging out with that guy, right? That's an insinuation. I'm insinuating something. I'm insinuating that something happened between these two people. Anyways, I feel in order to keep the alliteration, we should change it to inundation. Inundation meaning flooding, so you're flooding them with a bunch of id-related stuff. Yes, again, Eldritch Wizardry, that's what it was called, id insinuation, but I think in terms of this spell specifically, inundation works better. Id inundation. So Mind Thrust, you're disrupting them, what's happening, and they can't think to attack anything. You just boom in there, and they're like, run, or run, but carefully. So those are that's what Mind Thrust does. Psionic Blast is really cool. You are the Mind Flayer now. Now, it's not the same thing as the Mind Flayer. It's less damage to be sure, but I think you can raise it up in terms of upcasting. And then you push them back and knock them prone instead of stunning them. Both of these are beneficial. You get attacks on each of them, but it's less powerful because it's like 3rd level, I think, so it's not going to be as powerful as a Mind Flayer, which is like, I don't know, 9 CR9. Psychic Crush is another thing. This one actually was in, I'll mention it, it was one of the special psionic abilities. This one had the chance to kill you instantly. It wasn't a do damage, it was roll D100. If it's within these not three, or whatever numbers it was, you die instantly, or they die instantly. So, this is, not that, but it is, a more of a distraction. It's distracting the creature's mind, to this point where they can't do anything. I think they're incapacitated. I have notes, I don't have the actual, file in front of me, but they are distracted to the point where they can't do anything, and that's what this spell does. Thought Shield is one of the defenses in Eldritch Wizardry, and in 5th edition now, it's basically making one mind not register as a mind to other people who are looking for minds, so they can't be detected, they can't be read their thoughts and things like that. Now going back to Ego Whip, I noticed that this is an intelligence save, which is an uncommon saving throw. It's not people don't have that good of defenses compared to other stuff like dexterity or wisdom, and then it is it gives the target disadvantage on saving throws. So this is very it's like Contagion, but worse, because Contagion, it's at least a common saving throw, but you can give them disadvantage on that saving throw, so there's that. But this one, uncommon saving throw, disadvantage on the saving throw, if they fail, this is sticking, alright? This is a very sticky, very great in terms of getting more bang out of your buck. This is going to last on there forever. As I will mention, it's, people have said this is Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Witch Bolt, both of which are, one of them at least is a powerful 1st level ability, first level spell, so I'd say either move this up in terms of level if you just want to keep what you have now, or change it in some way. Now, Intellect Fortress, which was also in Eldritch Wizardry, it's basically Diamond Mine and a use of Indomitable for the party. It's like, 6th level spell or something like that, so it is high level. It's formidable in terms of defenses. I think it's really interesting to having like this kind of, you can help people with this and also you're helping yourself. It's a good use for you, use for them kind of thing. I really like the design of this. But yeah, it's very high level kind of thing. Mental Barrier is, I think it was in here. Let me check. Yeah, it was. So Mental Barrier is, it's basically 2nd level, but shield for mental saving throws, which we've actually never had before, I don't think. It's actually filling a gap that we haven't had, and I think we should have. Mind Sliver, I must confess, I haven't read the Unearthed Arcana where this originally appeared, like the Cthulhu kind of Unearthed Arcana, but anyways, Mind Sliver is a bit of damage and a bit of a debuff in terms of, I think it's attack roll. So it's similar to, it's more powerful than Vicious Mockery, but I think Vicious Mockery, their debuff is greater. So it balances out. If you want more damage, then this is the thing to go. If you want more debuff, Vicious Mockery. Now, Psychic Crush, it's kind of like the Soulknife's Rend feature, but the stun lasts for longer, but this time it's concentration. so that kind of balances it out. Yes, it goes for longer, but also you're concentrating on it, so you can't concentrate on other stuff. So yeah, I think it's fine. Because here's the thing: where would the Soulknives know it from? Other Psionics that were cast. And if it was the Soulknives that learned it first, then that's where the wizards got it. So I like it. It's not a bad thing that it's similar. I think it actually helps, because this is where they learned it from. And now the last spell, Thought Shield. This one I have huge troubles with. It's a mix of non-detection and Mind Blank. One of which is a 3rd level spell, one of which is an 8th level spell. And this Thought Shield thing, it's like, what, 2nd level, 3rd level, something. Again, it's over there. You can read it. I can't. I'm trying to. I don't have the notes on me. I'm very sorry. But anyways, it should not be able to do all the things it does, because those things are higher level spells than this. So it needs to be either gone up, like maybe it's a 5th level or 6th level spell that you know, a mix of an 8th level spell and a 3rd level spell. So overall for these spells, it's kind of a grab bag. Some of them are good, some of them need work, and there's a lot of themes going around, a lot of progression from what we had before, which is just numbers in a table. I don't know how it worked in 2nd edition going on, so I don't know what Ego Whip was before, I don't know what Insinuation was before, but this is what they are now, and I think I like some of them. So now the new feats, and I promise we are getting to the end of the video. I'm so excited. Then I have to go and edit it, but you don't have to worry about that, because that was in the past, for you at least. Anyways, going to the feats, these are the iconic mind powers: telepathy and telekinesis. So telekinesis, it gives you that mage hand but invisible thing. It also gives you the ability to shove a creature 5 feet as a bonus action. If you're not using a bonus action, it's a decent ability. By say decent, I mean like it's not stepping on the toes like Strength of Mind or Psionic Blast, but I struggle to understand how 5 feet, like maybe if you're pushing them back into a cloud of daggers or something like that, or moving them around like, hey, no, you, move over. I need you into the fireball range, or you move move over there so my ally can attack you. So but if it's an object as a bonus action, maybe I could see the wisdom in it, moving things around, giving yourself cover. Now let's go to telepathic. This is telepathy for like 30 feet, and then a skill choice. These are like a special skill. From you learning telepathy, you are starting to reach into their mind and pick out things that you can use. You can understand, you're getting a little bit of insight into their desires, so you can persuade them, or you're getting a little bit of insight into their everything, so you get a proficiency in insight. You're better at insight. So that's the idea with telepathy. The one thing I have to say is I feel like these skills should have like an intelligence threshold. Some things like Defensive Dueler has 13 dexterity or higher. It should be higher, because, you know, I don't think psionics are a thing that the everyday Joe would be able to pick up. Certainly not your 8 intelligence barbarian, or 8 intelligence anything, really. They shouldn't be able to pick up this. I'd say 14 or 15, because I want to be able to use these kind of things. So that's the one change I would make. Maybe do something better with telekinetic, but other than that, I think they're decent. They could be worked and add to the feats. So that was all of it. Like I said, Psionics are really hard to define, and I have trouble because I've already defined it and they're defining it differently. But if you want to see the way I define it, then request that I make a video about the Psion class, and I'll tell you what that means if you request it. Actually, I'll tell you right now. I made a Psionic class. So if you want to watch videos about me, about what I've done for the Psionic class, then yeah, then comment down below. Tell me that. If not, if you like these subclasses, then I'd say yeah, go ahead and use them however you will. And if you're interested in more stuff, I've done a lot more Unearthed Arcana videos. For instance, up there, that's the big playlist of all of that. But anyways, that is all I have for you in terms of video. If you have watched this far, congratulations. Either you can't reach your phone right now, or thank you for caring enough about me and my channel to listen to me ramble on way past longer than that was necessary. So, anyways, goodbye.